Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this component bracelet. This component bracelet is a version of the Anne bracelet. So the original Anne bracelet was a line bracelet, and then I made the necklace and the earrings and the ring, and I had one more bracelet in me. I just love it, fully embellished like this, but you can do it. You can stop at this point and make it a little less embellished. So here it is a little thinner, and here's the big baby, which I absolutely love. Love them both. Here's a little one in process. So there we go. That's what we're going to do today. So grab a cup of coffee. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring the bell so you get notified when I upload a video. And I promise this is probably the last Anne design piece for a while, so we'll move on after this. All right, so I'm going to clear this off, get a materials list going, and we'll get started. Okay, let's get a materials list going. So you'll need a Swarovski 8.2 millimeter Chaton, or if you have a different one from a different brand, it might be an 8 millimeter. They kind of vary if you measure them, and that can make a difference. So I'm going to show you throughout the video some tips on getting your Chaton, whether it be an 8 millimeter, 8.2, 8.1, you know, in that range, to get it to fit really well. 4 millimeter pearl, 4 millimeter bicone, 2 millimeter Firepolished bead. You'll need some 11/0 seed beads, some 15/0 seed beads. I have some bugle beads, 3 millimeter bugle beads, stop bead, some kind of clasp. I have a 2-strand box clasp here. You can always adjust the size of the bracelet because it's a component bracelet by the clasp. So like if you're in the middle of a component and it fits, then you could put a larger clasp on. You can add a right angle weave unit at the end. You know, I'll give you some tips on for sizing. So I'm using 8-pound Fireline black satin. You can use 6-pound. I think Wildfire will be too thick for this. We're going through these beads a lot. Size 11 beading needle and a 12. I think that's about it. Anything else will go in the description box under the video. Don't forget to click that down arrow, show more. Box will open, and everything you need, including colors, sizes, shapes, amounts, everything, places to purchase beads if you need it, will be down there. So take a look down there. Lots of good info down there. All right, so I'm going to clear this off and we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. So thread your needle with about 36 inches of thread. I want you to leave about a 14 to 16 inch tail, maybe even 16 inches, because we're going to use that tail to do the top of the bracelet. So we want on each component, so we want that tail. All right, so I've gotten some questions about bicones cutting the Fireline. So I believe, yes, that can happen. It doesn't happen often, but I notice with the Fireline black satin, it happens more because I think it doesn't have as thick a coating on it. So I don't have any beeswax and I don't have any thread heaven, but I do have an old soy candle. I don't light candles much anymore. I buy the LED ones. So I'm just going to wax it using this candle and see if that works. I think if anything, it gives it another layer of, you know, before, you know, before the edge of the bicone. So yeah, I think it's a good idea if you can get thread heaven. I thought they were no longer making it. But it's possible they are, but all I have right now is this candle. So here I've done it, and I've just run it through the candle a few times, and I'm just rubbing it in. Oh, wax is falling all over, but, you know, so it has like another protective layer, so I don't see how that can hurt. All right, so I'm going to pick up 2 pearls and 2 bicones, and I'm going to drop those down to my stop bead, and I'm going to make those into a unit by sewing up through the first bead after the stop bead, like that. And now I'm going to go all the way around to reinforce this unit. So through the pearl, through the bicone, next bicone. So I'm passing the stop bead now through this pearl. And I'm going to go back one more time through this pearl. Then I'm going to hold my unit. I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to hold it like this. So I have a bicone here on the top, pearl on the bottom, pearl on the left, bicone on the right. Okay, so just get that done and come back and we'll continue. So we're exiting this pearl on the bottom. We're going to pick up one 11-0, 2 pearls, and a bicone. Exiting right here, just going to sew through the top of that bead, the bicone, to add this unit on. That's what it looks like. I'm just going to kind of pull in this direction a little bit. I'm going to completely skip that 11-0. I'm going to sew through the next pearl. That's going to make that thread kind of go in back of the 11-0, and that's going to give me what looks like this. Now I'm just going to sew through the next bead, which is a pearl, and then this bicone, like this. Okay, so I'm just going to let you get to that point, and then we'll continue. Okay, so we are exiting this bicone right here. So you're going to pick up a bicone and 2 pearls. You're going to sew through the other side of that bicone that you're exiting. That's what it looks like. So now, if you're using the Swarovski Chaton, you're going to pick up a 2mm fire polish, and you're going to sew directly up through that next bicone right there. That's what it looks like. So if you're using a smaller chaton, let's say it's 8mm, or you've made a unit and you're having a little bit of trouble keeping the stone in, you can put an 11-0 right here instead of this 2mm fire polish. So if you notice, see how the 11-0 is about half the size? That little bit can make all the difference. So just a little tip if you are having issues with, because the chatons vary in size. All right, so let's pick up 2 pearls. Now we're exiting here. We're going to sew through this bicone and then the one you're exiting on the diagonal. Skip that, the 2mm or the 11-0, whatever you put there, to make our unit. That's what our unit looks like. Now all you're going to do is just make a right turn. I'll move my thumb in a second and sew through this pearl right at the top. Just like that. Alright, so get that done and then come on back and we'll continue. Okay, we're back. So I am exiting from this pearl right here. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and sew through the next pearl. I'm going to do that all the way around. Got a little knot in my thread, which I'm hoping I can pull through, but if you get a knot, please take it out because it can definitely cause problems. I'm just going to continue and hope it doesn't cause me a problem. Okay, so I'm putting an 11-0 in between each pearl, and where I have an 11-0, I'm just sewing right through that one until I get to the next area where I need. See, that's the knot right there where I need another 11-0. So let's see. Okay. So actually I'm just going to leave my knot, and you don't do that, and I'll just make another unit, but I just want you to get to this point. So here I'm exiting this pearl. I'm going to keep going to get all my 11-0s on, just like that. And then I'm going to just sew through a corner bead. So I want you to situate your piece just like this. So you're coming out of this top corner bead here, and this center fire polish is vertical. The hole is vertical. So this is what you want it to look like. So make sure you're at that point, just like that, and then come on back and we'll continue. Okay, let's continue. So we're going to do the edge piece here. So we're going to pick up 3 11-0s, a 4mm bicone, and 3 11-0s. Pull in a little bit. Exiting here, I'm just going to sew through the one on the bottom. So the corner bead on the bottom. I'm going to just immediately go this way through the pearl and up through these 3 beads. So that's why I want this vertical, so it's an easy path for you. Like that. going to make another turn and go through this pearl. If I can get my needle in there. There we go. Like that. Down these 11 O's and through the bicone. Okay, just like that. All right, so there's our first unit. So we're going to make as many of these units as we need for our bracelet. So, you know, we're just to this point, and then we're going to connect them. So my bracelet is 6 3/4 inches, and my clasp is about 3/4 of an inch. So I have 8 units here. Yep, I have 8 units. So that gives me either 6 3/4 inch bracelet. If you need another unit, add another unit. You can take off a unit. If you are in between units for your fit, so this is going to, let's say this is going to be the end of the bracelet here, we can always add a unit here, or some bicones, or some pearls, just to extend the bracelet a little bit if you need to extend it, or you can just get a bigger clasp. This is a small clasp. I mean, you get clasps that are 1.5 inches, so that can always add too. So lots of different ways to get a component bracelet to fit, have all the components fit. All right, so you're going to make your components just to this point, and then come on back and we'll sew them together back. So I'm going to sew a couple of units together just to show you how it goes. So I have 3 units done here. So let's say these are the ends of my bracelet. Now, depending on whether you need to extend your bracelet or not, you may end up not needing the embellishment on one side. Like, see how I don't have it on one side of this end? So your very end unit, you might not need those, or you might. So I have it on at the moment, but you can always take it off when we get down there, so you can size things the way you want. All right. So if you notice, I have a thread coming out of here. It's around the outside. That's going to be to put our chatons on. So you can leave that thread, and then you have the threads coming out of the bicones. So I'm going to pull on a little bit. I'm going to show you how to attach. So pick up 3 11 O's, and you're going to, actually I'm going sort of lefty here, but that's okay. You're going to go through this one, this bead right here, like that. I mean, you can always turn the units around if it's not comfortable for you to sew this way. There. Actually, I'm going to move it this way. So here I have the 3 on. I'm going to hold it like that. Now I'm just going to go through the next pearl like that. That's what it looks like. Going down those 3 again in the center, just moving my piece around so it's comfortable to sew. Like that. I'm aiming for this bead right here. So I'm going to make a turn and go through the pearl and that 11 O. That's where I want to exit. Move this guy out of the way. Like that. And then I'm going to pick up 3 11 O's. And I'm going to sew through the bicone to attach, just like that. Now let me move this guy out of the way. Like that. So now I'm attached. So in order to get this secure, you're just going to sew back around your beads. A circle. Down my center again. There's plenty of room there. Around. So I'm just retracing my steps just to tighten this up. Now, okay, so now I've gone through the bicone. So now I'm connected. So a couple things here. The next step, after you get these all connected, is going to be putting the Chatons on. So here, this is what it will look like once we get the bezels done. However, I'm going to take it a step further and make this bracelet. So we're going to embellish all the way around, but you can use that. You can just use it this way if you like. You know, if you just like a thinner bracelet and you want a little more square, it goes with the. It's pretty much just like the ring. So if you're going to do it this way, you want to make sure that these beads are nice and tight. So you may want to reinforce around just the same way you were doing in the beginning, you know, the same way we just did, and then tie a knot. And tie your knot somewhere on the back here, okay? Because we want to keep these beads here on the outside free to put our chatons on. We don't want any knots in those. So, you know, you can, at this point, you can stop here. Actually, you can even do it without any chatons on and just continue making units, and you have a bracelet there too. So lots of options here. So far, 3 options actually. All right, so sew all your units together. Don't worry about the end piece. If we take this off because you need to, because of, you know, you need to size a little bit better, that's fine. We'll add this on after, not a problem. Just sew everybody together and then meet me back here and we'll continue. Okay, time to make the bezel. So I'm going to start with this one. I just have 3 units on. I'll just show you how to do one and then you can just continue. So we have our bezel thread here. And I don't know if anybody noticed in my little sample piece, I was wondering why it looked a little off. I have an extra seed bead right there. I have 5 beads instead of, I should have 4 altogether. And look what it did. So if it looks a little funky, there's usually a reason. So I'm going to have to take this. It's just a sample, so it's okay, but just make sure you do all your counting, watch your knots. So I'm having some, you know, normal beading issues that anybody would have during this video, and I'm leaving them in because I just think it's something that, you know, you might come up against. So, all right, so we'll put that aside. So here we have these, so this is my end thread to attach more units. Here are the tail threads that we left to put the bezel on. So here I have one right here. I've threaded a needle. I'm exiting the pearl here. You can tell, just pull back, you can see where you're exiting. I'm just going to sew through that next seed bead, that 11-0, because that's where I want to connect. So let me put this behind me. I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, exiting here. I'm just going to sew through this one, this 11-0. See, this is why I've kept all these 11-0s pretty much free of thread, because they have a, you know, a purpose. So I need another 4 11-0s. Exiting this one, I'm going to sew through this one. Like that. 4 11-0s through the next one. That. And I only did 3, so I'm going to have to back out of that one. So I'm going to have to actually, so when that happens, look at all these, I'm having like, you know, little gremlins in my beading today, aren't I? So here, when that happens and you can't back out, just pull the thread out. So all these little gremlins I think will be helpful, so I'm leaving them in. So rethread your needle. Make sure you get 4 beads before you sew through this guy. That's better. 4. Going to go through the last one again. So that's where I started, just like that. Just make sure that they all kind of pop over. And then I'm just going to advance my needle through that for the next 4 beads, you know, the ones that I put on. So here, this is where I'm exiting. Right, I'm just going to let you get to that point and then we'll continue. Okay. So now we're going to put on some fire polish. So pick up your 2mm fire polish. So you're exiting these 4 beads here. Don't go through this one, just go through the next 4, you know, that you'd put on, not the little one on the bottom there. Just to place a 2mm. Do that again. 2mm through the 4. You want to straighten it out, make sure as much as you can. This is your bezel here. Another one. And the straighter you have these, the better your bezel is going to come out. One more. And just go through the fore end, that 2mm. So here you want to make sure that this one is in between the 11/0s and give it a little pull. Straighten it out as much as you can. Just like that. So this is what it looks like so far. So get that done and then we'll continue. Okay, we're getting there. So, we need our bugle beads. So let's grab some bugle beads. And our chaton, it's over here. So we're going to pick up a 15/0, a bugle bead, and a 15/0. I'm going to sew through the next. So we're exiting the 2mm right here. Just going to sew through the next 2mm. Do that all the way around. 15/0, bugle bead, 15/0, the next one, 15/0, bugle bead, 15/0, through the next one, 15/0, bugle bead, 15/0, through that last one. And then I want you to just like push them up a little bit with your fingers, and I want you to sew through the next, you're exiting the fire polish, sew through the next 15/0 bugle bead and 15/0. And then give it a little squish in, and then come back and we'll continue. We're getting close. 15/0, exiting this 15/0, skip the fire polish and sew through the 15/0 bugle bead, 15/0. This is where we're making like prongs for our setting, for our stone. Pull. See how that's sitting in there? Let me pull in super tight on that. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way around. 15/0, exiting this 15/0, skip the fire polish, sew through the next 15/0 bugle bead and 15/0. I need to move my piece around like that. Do that again. 15/0, skip the fire polish, sew through the 15/0 bugle bead, 15/0. Notice how I'm helping it over the fire polish bead. 15/0, skip the fire polish, 15/0 bugle bead, 15/0. We have our little cup. So get that done and come back and we'll put in the stone. Okay. So you may need to, at this point, pick up your pliers or whatever you can fit down there and push that little fire polish bead down. Mine's already down, so it's looking pretty good. I'm going to put my stone in, and I'm going to encourage that little bezel to go on top. It's not going to stay yet. I'm just going to kind of hold it even. See how I'm pushing it together a little bit? And now you just want to sew through all the beads you had already put on. So exiting this 15/0, I want to sew through this 15/0 in the center, pull it in a little bit, and then through the 15/0 bugle bead, 15/0. Do that again, and here I'm going to pull in super tight. So here I'm exiting this 15/0. You're going to sew through that center 15/0, and then the 15/0 bugle bead, 15/0. And when I pull this in a bit, do you see how I have a little prong setting now? This bead is sticking out a little further than the two on the side. That's what you want to happen. And to make that happen, you're just going to see, and it's not going to stay yet. Make that happen, you're just going to keep pulling inward and reinforcing all the way around. You might have to do this 2 or 3 times. Mine's getting tight. There. So I kind of sew through the center one separately so I can kind of give it a little pull inward. See how when I pull, that's straightening out. And here I have a little space on this one. So I'm going through the center. And then the 15/0 bugle bead. 15/0. You can switch to a size 12 beading needle here and pull. When you pull, you want to make sure that when you look at it, that all your little prongs are set really nicely and your stone is centered nicely. And there you go. You have one of your stones on. Let me move everybody around. So this is what I have for my first stone. And at this point, I lost my thread. My thread came off my needle, but you're just going to go around until you feel it's really comfortable, and then sew through, you know, one of these fire polished beads, maybe some 11/0s, or wherever you can, and get some half-hitch knots in there just to secure the stone. You'll find somewhere you can sew through. And just make sure it's nice and sturdy. You don't want it loose. It will tighten up and be beautiful. All right, so let me pull out. So get that done. You're going to do that on all your units, and then come back, and you can either, you know, at that point, you can either put a clasp on, and call it a bracelet, but we're going to go on to make this guy. All right, see you in a few. Okay, we're back. So now we're going to continue with the ends. So in reviewing this and looking at it, I really think you need this on both ends, or you need to, you know, add this on both ends anyway, whether or not you are extending or making it smaller. I just think it's part of the design. It looks pretty. So the way you're going to do that is, if you have a thread left over, you can just add, like we did before, you know, the seed beads, the bicone, the seed beads. I wanted to show you this also. So here, I've finished my bezel here, and I'm exiting this 11/0. So what you can do to sew in your threads is you can go through this fire polish bead, and I'm just going to direct you now. You can use all these, sew through these 11/0s and put a knot right after this 11/0 and pull it into the fire polish. That's a perfectly acceptable way to tie off your threads if you're having trouble getting through. So what I'm going to do with this, because I want to get that edge on, instead of adding a thread, I'm just going to use this thread. So I'm exiting the fire polish. I'm just going to turn this way. So a little designing on the fly here, because I'm trying to get it to fit everybody. I'm just going through that 11/0, through the pearl, and the 11/0. So I got the pearl and the 11/0, just like that. So now I have a thread on the end, and I can add my little edge piece, and I'll show you how to extend it in a minute, but I just wanted to get this done. So here I've added my extension. You know, you're going to work your way out, back through these beads, down these beads. They'll be a little bit tighter because you've already completed the unit, but it should be doable. And then, you know, you can go through it again, or just tie some half-hitch knots there, because we're going to be going through these beads again. So I think this works out best. We did a little designing on the fly, but that's okay. I want everybody to be able to do this no matter what your wrist size is. All right, so just get that end on so that you're even and everything looks good, and then come back and I'll show you how to extend, and then we'll put the clasp and the edging on. Just a quick little tip: if you want to extend the bracelet, you know, slightly without adding another unit, and you don't want to change the, you know, use a bigger clasp. So here I'm exiting the bicone. I've just picked up a seed bead, a bicone, a seed bead, a bicone, seed bead, bicone, and a seed bead. So 4 seed beads with 3 bicones in between. Exiting this bicone, I'm just going to sew through the other side. So see, I have a little extension going on there. And then just sew up through the beads, and you want to reinforce this, and then you can just add the clasp on very easily after that. So that's an idea. If that's too big, you can use smaller pearls or smaller bicones, or, you know, anything, but just add another unit on and it should work just fine. All right, so come on back and we'll continue. Okay, we're back. So actually I'm going to do the embellishment before I do the clasp. So I've threaded a needle with about maybe a little more than 4 feet of thread, but on a stop bead right in the middle. So I'm going to start at the bottom here, like this, and I'm going to sew through these 4 seed beads, the bicone, and then the 4 seed beads on the other side. Like that. So I'm going to have 1 thread coming out of one side and 1 thread coming out of the other side. Okay, so I'm going to just hold it this way so I can sew a little easier. So just like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up 3 11-ohs. Let me make sure that's what I did. Yes, a bicone. And 3 11-ohs. And I'm going to sew through the seed bead all the way on the other side, like that. That's what I have. I'm going to sew, so I'm exiting here. I'm just going to sew through the next 3 seed beads and the bicone, and then up the seed beads on the other side. So here I'm going to be zigzagging, okay, and then through this one. Like that. I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads, a bicone, and 3 seed beads, so 11-ohs here. Exiting this one, I'm just going to skip over to the next one, and as many seed beads as I can get around that edge too. Like that. Sewing through the last seed bead and the bicone, like that. So here, notice I'm just zigzagging back and forth now, up these 4, 3 seed beads, a bicone, 3 seed beads. The same thing, like that, through the rest of the seed beads, those 4, through the bicone. Just flipping it around, through the next 4 seed beads, 3 seed beads, a bicone, 3 of your seed beads. I'm going to sew through that first bead after right here after this pearl. Okay, just like that. Go through these 3 and the bicone. And now you have one side zigzagged. So get that done, and then come on back and we'll do the other side. Okay, so I've threaded the other thread. I threaded my needle, and I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs, bicone, 3 11-ohs. I'm going to do the same thing, exiting here. I'm going to sew through this group of seed beads right here. You can just do one or several, but then eventually you want to make sure you go through all of them and the bicone. Like that. And now you have one complete unit. Needle through the next 4, 3 seed beads, bicone, 3 seed beads. Exiting this seed bead, just skip over to this group. Sew through as many as you can, or just one, doesn't matter, but just eventually make sure you go through all 4 and the bicone, like that. And now you have 2 units done. So you're just going to continue that all the way down your bracelet until you come to the end, and then sew in your threads, and we'll add the clasp separately. So I'm just going to do my 4, you do your how many, sew in your threads, and then we'll put a clasp on. Okay, we're back. So here we are. We're going to put the clasp on in a second, but this is what it looks like. Really pretty. I know it was a lot of steps, but I think it comes out great. All right, so let's put this clasp on. So I've threaded a needle, I don't know, 15, 16 inches of thread. I'm just going to, and put on a stop bead and left a tail to sew in. I'm just going to sew through the bicone, like that. Now, no matter what clasp you use, you can just use this bicone, or like I said before, you can extend using the bicone. I'm going to pick up an 11-0. I'm going to sew through the one ring, if I can get to it. Here we go. I'll put it down on my mat in a second. Like that. I'm going to pick up 3 11/0s. I'm going to sew through the next ring. Like that. Just going to move my stop bead out of the way. I'm going to pick up an 11/0. I'm going to sew back through the 4mm bicone. So this is what it looks like. I just move this out of the way when you have the clasp on. And all you're going to do is reinforce by going around all the beads again. Grab this guy. Okay. So when I pull tight, see, that's what the clasp is going to look like. So you're just going to reinforce by going through all the beads again, maybe twice because it's a pretty substantial bracelet. And then, you know, sew through your beads until you can find a place to put a couple of half-hitch knots. I ended up doing my half-hitch knots. I went around these beads actually, and I did my half-hitch knots right before the bicones in the center, and it really tightened everybody up really nicely, and it's nice and secure. All right, so get that done on this side. Do the same thing on the other side, and then come on back, and we'll finish up. Okay, we're all done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a blast making it, even though there were a few gremlins along the way, a few mistakes that I had to fix, you know, a little designing on the fly. It's just all part of beading, lots of fun. I did want to share with you something somebody asked me about using a bead reamer for my pearls, and what a great idea. And I was like, no, I never use that. But I do have one, so I pulled it out, and all you do is put it through the hole, because a lot of times with a fake pearl, see that? Like it was clogged at the edge. It's clogged, and then it's really hard to get your needle through, so just do a little of that, and then you can do it on the other side, like that. And now I have this perfect hole. Look at that. It's a little bit bigger, and I can fit a pearl in places that, you know, because pearls always have smaller holes. So now this makes it really, really easy to do, and you can see the inside the stuff that came out. So that's kind of cool. All right, so I just wanted to share that with you. If I can find a link to this, this is from Joann's. It was years ago that I bought it, but if I can find a link on my usual suspects websites, I will definitely put that in for you. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Find a nice rainy or snowy day and come and make some beautiful jewelry with me. All right, see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.